The Mughal Empire was arguably the longest surviving kingdom in medieval India, lasting for around 3 centuries. The empire had a significant influence in shaping up the society and economy of modern-day India, Pakistan, and Bangladesh. This video documentary has the objective of enlightening viewers on the events leading to the establishment of the Mughal Empire in the Indian subcontinent. The historical figure credited with founding the Mughal Indian Empire is Zahiruddin Babur. He is known in history as simply Babur, which, in the Persian language, means tiger. The references that were primarily used in the preparation of this video documentary are the biographies of Babur and his eventual successors. Providing a background on Babur's life would help in understanding the circumstances that led to the Mughal invasion of India. Born in modern-day Uzbekistan in the year 1483 AD, Babur was the eldest son of Omar Sheikh Mirza, the ruler of Farghana. Genghis Khan, the 12th century founder of the Mongol Empire, was the maternal ancestor of Babur. Babur belonged to the Timurid dynasty as Timur, the 14th century founder of the Timurid Empire, was his paternal ancestor. The first few years of Babur's life was confined to modern-day Uzbekistan. This was arguably the toughest part of his life that enabled him to learn the art of dealing with adversities and to develop the never say die attitude that is very essential for a conqueror. In the year 1494, the ruler of Farghana died of an unfortunate accident, and the 11-year-old Babur was made the new king. It is unclear as to who took up the position of his regent, but it is likely that his regent must have been an experienced general. At this point, Uzbekistan was divided among various rulers, and constant warfare among them prevailed. Babur was able to foil attempts from his enemies to remove him from power with the help of his influential maternal grandmother. The Mughals were seen as outsiders in Uzbekistan, and the local Uzbeks had built a powerful army under the leader of Shaibani. In the middle of 1497, teenager Babur managed to take the city of Samarkand, but the powerful Uzbeks struck back later that year and captured both Samarkand and Fargana. Babur was now virtually homeless. Babur moved to Badakhshan, a northern province in the modern-day Afghanistan. There, he built a strong army under his name to attempt reclaiming his lost dominions. A ferocious clash between Babur and the Uzbeks ensued, and the cities of Farghana and Samarkand changed hands 3 times. Babur finally gave up after his defeat in 1503 as he was facing acute financial crisis and was no longer able to pay his troops. Babur was reduced to the lowest point of his life in late 1503. He had to take refuge in Tashkent, capital of modern-day Uzbekistan. Tashkent was then ruled by Babur's uncle, and he was not happy with the arrival of Babur. Babur was badly treated at Tashkent and had to endure much poverty and humiliation. He also had to remain in exile for some time and was even forced to take shelter from local farmers. However, even while in exile, Babur managed to build a decent army. 1504 was a remarkable year for him. The ruler of Kabul, modern-day Afghanistan, had become unpopular. Revolts were very common in Kabul and nearby regions, and Babur saw that as a perfect opportunity to invade. So he crossed the snowy Hindu Kush mountains and launched a campaign in Afghanistan. He was eventually able to take control of Kabul, and the local Afghans submitted to him. This was a huge milestone in Babur's career. By taking Kabul, he found some kind of a base. However, the newly conquered region was not entirely secure. Small-scale local Afghan uprisings were pretty common, and Babur also had to deal with the powerful Uzbeks who threatened his northern border. In 1505, Babur set his eyes on Peshawar, the capital of Pakistan province of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Babur took advantage of the existing chaos there to invade the city. The Uzbeks launched repeated assaults on Kandahar, which is in modern-day Afghanistan. Kandahar changed hands many times between Babur and the Uzbeks. A local rebellion by the Afghans had developed in 1507. They attempted to break free from the Mughals, and it took some time and effort from Babur to suppress the uprising. While at Kabul, Babur received some happy piece of news in 1510. The Uzbeks were at war against the Safavid dynasty-ruled Persian Empire that is based in modern-day Iran. The prominent and popular Uzbek leader Shaybani was killed in a battle against the Persians, and the Uzbeks lost territories to the Persian Empire. The loss of their leader and territories greatly weakened the Uzbeks and was no longer a powerful force as it previously was. This relaxed the pressure on Babur's northern border and he could breathe easier. Despite the end of Shaybani, Babur's position was still precarious and uncertain in Central Asia. Let us provide some light on the geographical scenario at this point. Babur had the powerful Persian Empire to his west, formidable Uzbeks to his north, unpenetrable mountains to his east, and the Indian subcontinent to his south. It was the fourth option that attracted Babur the most. Indian rulers were known to be extremely fond of pleasure and luxuries, and their armies were highly ineffective owing to the lack of warfare. Yet, it was an extremely wealthy nation, generating massive revenues. Babur had long cherished the ambition of conquering India to fulfill the legacy of his ancestor Timur, who had the North Indian province of Punjab as a part of his vast empire. The first opportunity came in the year 1517 with the death of Sikandar Lodi, Sultan of Delhi. His two sons, Ibrahim and Jalal, clashed for the throne, and Ibrahim emerged triumphant. Jalal managed to escape his elder brother and sought refuge in other Indian kingdoms. New Sultan Ibrahim Lodi was unpopular and most of the nobility was not happy with him. This created the lack of stability in his empire. Meanwhile, Babur was consolidating his position in Afghanistan. He procured gunpowder from the two superpowers of Central Asia, Safavid Empire in Persia and Ottoman Empire in Turkey. Babur had enlisted the service of Turkish matchlockmen and gunners that enabled him to develop his artillery division. By 1519, Babur had crushed all remnants of local Afghan rebels and had secured Kabul for the Mughals. Babur was now free to prepare for his Indian campaigns. At this point, the Indian subcontinent lacked political unity. Among many kingdoms, 7 were the big entities. There were two major native Hindu kingdoms and 5 major kingdoms that were ruled by Muslim kings. The Hindu kingdoms were the Kingdom of Mewar and the Vijayanagar Empire. Mewar was a part of Rajputana, modern-day Rajasthan. Vijayanagar Empire in the south was constantly at conflict with the Deccan Sultanates. The remaining 5 large kingdoms were the Delhi Sultanate, ruled by the Lodi dynasty, and that included most of the Indo-Gangetic plains, along with the capital cities of Delhi and Agra. Lodi dynasty was of Afghan origin. The other 4 major sultanates were the Sultanate of Bihar, the Bengal Sultanate, the Sultanate of Gujarat, and the Sultanate of Malwa. Babur was looking to start his Indian campaign with Punjab, which was then a part of the Lodi Empire. This would set him up in conflict with Sultan Ibrahim Lodi, the king of Delhi. Sultan Ibrahim Lodi had created numerous enemies. The Rajput Confederacy did not like him. Governors of various provinces were at the risk of losing their positions and being arrested by the Sultan. Most importantly, the Afghan nobility at the court of Delhi hated him and secretly prayed for his downfall. In 1521, Babur took advantage of the situation and expanded his domain in Punjab till the river Chenab, which is in modern-day Pakistan. In 1523, Daulat Khan Lodi was dismissed from the position of governor of Punjab. He and the Sultan's uncle Alam Khan were among those who held a grudge against Ibrahim Lodi. So, they sent envoys to Babur at Kabul requesting him to invade India. Babur could not let this golden opportunity slip away. So he marched on the undefended city of Lahore and occupied it. It is said that in Lahore his troops arrested Guru Nanak, the first Guru of the Sikhs. Later, Babur ordered the release of Guru Nanak after he was influenced by his speech. Babur installed Alam Khan as his governor in Punjab. This was due to the fact that Alam Khan helped him occupy Lahore with ease. After giving careful instructions to defend Punjab from any possible attack from Ibrahim Lodi's imperial troops, Babur went back to Kabul. In 1525, Ibrahim Lodi attacked Punjab and Alam Khan was unable to defend Lahore. Alam Khan fled to Kabul and informed Babur of the situation. Babur responded by providing Alam Khan with Mughal troops. Babur advised Alam Khan to join Daulat Khan Lodi in northern India, and together with him attack the Sultan Ibrahim Lodi. Alam Khan and Daulat Khan Lodi attacked the Sultan near Delhi, but they were defeated. Ibrahim Lodi pursued them, but Alam Khan and Daulat Khan Lodi quickly went back to Babur. Babur realized that Ibrahim Lodi was not an easy opponent. Babur realized that he would have to fight the Lodi Sultan in person to take him down. Babur started out for Delhi in the middle of 1525 and crossed the Indus River in December. His army consisted of battle-hardened veterans that had been with him for the last 2 decades. The Mughal army reached Panipat on the 12th of April 1526. Panipat is located in the present-day North Indian province of Haryana. Here he was informed that Ibrahim Lodi was approaching with a massive army. The Lodi Sultan had left Delhi in early 1526. He summoned troops and generals from all the parts of his empire to join him. Both sides camped at Panipat and stood facing each other for 8 days. There was just one occasion when action took place in those 8 days. On the night of 19th of April, the Mughals attempted a surprise attack on the Lodi camp. The Afghans initially were caught off guard, but eventually managed to drive back the intruders. Babur held a council with his generals. Some suggested him to retreat back to Kabul after placing garrisons in Punjab. Others advised a battle, so Babur decided to stand and fight. Babur was at a numerical disadvantage. His army had cavalry, horse archers, and musketeers. Despite having 20 cannons, his army would not have numbered over 20,000. Ibrahim Lodi had the luxury of having high numbers. His army had 40,000 cavalry, nearly as many infantry, besides 500 war elephants. His army was around 4 times that of his opponent. A sharp contrast may be observed on the nature of the opposing forces, though. Babur had battle-hardened soldiers who were taught to obey their commanders without questions. The Lodi army, on the other hand, was more of a feudal nature. Most of them were strangers to battles, and the officers were meeting each other for the very first time. Most generals reluctantly joined the Sultan's cause and were eager to escape from the battlefield under the slightest threat. 21st of April was the day of the battle. Both armies formed up. The Mughals dug a trench 7 kilometers wide, kept it at its left flank. This trench prevented the city of Panipat from a direct attack by the Lodi army. The Mughal right wing was commanded by Humayun, the eldest son of Babur. The Mughal left wing was under the command of Muhammad Mirza, Babur's cousin. Babur himself was at the center. The front line of the Mughals consisted of wagons chained together to prevent the enemy from breaking through. The wagons provided a much-needed elevation for archers, musketeers, and field cannons. Ibrahim Lodi's army was positioned in the most traditional fashion. His war elephants were at the front line. Behind them were the Afghan cavalry. This was followed by the infantry. The Sultan himself was at the rear with his personal troops of 7,000 horsemen. It was around 8 in the morning when the battle started. Confident that his numbers would decide the day for him, Ibrahim Lodi ordered a general advance of his entire army, with his war elephants leading the charge. The war elephants, however, were met with heavy artillery fire from Babur's cannons. Despite not having much of a range in those days, the artillery fire did have the effect of scaring Lodi's elephants. The elephants began running around without being able to be controlled by their riders. The cavalry and infantry behind them panicked, scared of being trampled by the elephants. The Lodi army lost its battle formation. Seeing the enemy bogged down, Babur planned on a pincer movement. He ordered his left and right wing cavalry to attack the Lodi right and left wing respectively. This is known as outflanking maneuver. The Lodi army was under pressure from 3 sides and it was trapped. It was taking massive casualties and it appeared that the Lodi army was on the brink of collapse. All this time, Sultan Ibrahim Lodi was standing at the rear of his army with his personal troops of 7,000 cavalry. He had to take a decision now. It was now or never for him. One of his close advisors suggested retreating to Delhi. A large force could be assembled using the vast resources of the Lodi Empire to try and renew conflict with the Mughals. But Sultan Ibrahim Lodi rebuked this cowardly advice. He decided on an offensive. By an act of imprudence, Ibrahim Lodi galloped forward with his personal troops to try and reverse the momentum of the battle. However, the tide of the battle had turned heavily against the Lodi army by then, and when the Sultan himself was slain in the carnage, the battle was decided. decisively lost. With Delhi Sultan Ibrahim Lodi laying dead on the battlefield of Panipat, all that his soldiers could think of was reaching home alive. They escaped in haste, conceding the battlefield to Babur and his victorious Mughal army. Many of the Afghan infantrymen were slain while escaping. Around 20,000 Afghans of the Lodi army were either killed or injured, while the casualties in the Mughal army numbered around 100. Later, Babur applauded the courage of Ibrahim Lodi, but the fallen Afghan soldiers did not receive his admiration. In line with the Timurid traditions, the Mughals constructed towers made up of heads of the dead enemy soldiers. The purpose of this brutal act was to instill fear in the minds of potential enemies. Babur had mentioned in his memoirs, "The battle commenced when the sun was spear high, and by midday the enemy lay in the dust." The battle lasted around 5 hours. Historians argue that Babur would have been in trouble had the battle dragged longer, on account of his low numerical strength. Now victorious, the Mughals looted the Lodi camps and found booty beyond imagination. Horses and mules laden with gold were being sent off to Kabul as the spoils of war. The Lodi Empire had been defeated, but there were other Indian kingdoms that still remain at large. Are they going to sit back and let the Mughals enjoy their newly found possessions? Or will they challenge Babur to the bitter end? You can find out by watching the next episode of this documentary series. Thank you for watching.